Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti-yoga Swamini Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prashatya Desha Tarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Syaveita Gadara Shivasati Gauravata Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 12. Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. Translations, purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
И така, четем песен, Шримад Бхагаватам, 12 глава. Друга Махараджа се връща обратно при Бога. Превод и коментар от Него Божественост на Байчарна Нервини Бхактивиданта Свами Шримад Прабхупада.
Yes, so before I went to Emona, we just finished the 11th chapter 1 month ago, where Dhruva Maharaj was advised by Swayambhuva Manu to stop fighting the yakshas.
Преди един месец, преди да тръгнем за Емона, точно свършихме 11 глава, където Свайамбхува Ману съветва Друга Махараджа да спре да се бие с якшите.
So now, text 1 we have, and we'll see what happened after he took this advice from Swayambhuva Manu.
И така, нека да видим сега от текст първи какво става, когато той се случва в съвета на Ману.
Maitreya Uvacha Dhruvam Nivritam Pratibudya Vaishasat Apetamanyum Bhagavan Daneshvaraha Tatragatas Charana Yaksha Kinnarai Sangstuyamano Nyavadat Kritanjalim Maitreya Uvacha Dhruvam Nivritam Pratibudyat Vaishasat Apetyamanyum Bhagavan Daneshvara Tatragatas Charana Yaksha Kinnarai Sangstuyamano Nyavadat Kritanjalim Maitreya Uvacha Dhruvam Nivritam Pratibudya Vaishasat Apetamanyum Bhagavan Daneshvaraha Tatragatas Charana Yaksha Kinnarai Sangstuyamano Nyavadat Kritanjalim Maitreya Uvacha Maitreya said Dhruva Maharaj Nivritam ceased Pratibudya having learned
научил
Vaishasat,
Vaishasat
from killing,
from killing, убивать,
Apeta,
Apeta
subsided,
subsided,
Manyum,
Manyum,
anger,
anger, гняв,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
Kuvera,
Кувера,
Dana Ishvaraha,
Dhanishvara,
master of the treasury,
master of the treasury,
Господар на съкровищницата,
Господар на съкровищницата,
Tatra,
Tatra,
there,
there,
там,
там,
Agataha,
Agataha,
appeared,
appeared, се появи,
се появи,
Charana,
Charana,
by the Charanas,
Чарнас,
Yaksha,
Якша,
Yakshas,
Yakshas,
Kinarai,
Kinarai,
and by the Kinnaras,
Kinas,
Sangstu Yamanaha,
Samstuyamanaha,
being worshipped,
и
worship,
възхвалявам.
Nyavadat
Нявада,
spoke,
Скол, каза,
Krita Anjalim,
Anjali,
to Dhruva with folded hands,
Dhruva with folded hands,
на друго, който стоеше с допрени длани.
Dhruva, който стоеше с
Translation: The great sage Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, Dhruva Maharaj's anger subsided and he completely ceased killing yakshas. When Kuvera, the most blessed master of the treasury, learned this news, he appeared before Dhruva. While being worshipped by yakshas, kinnaras and charanas, he spoke to Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands."
Превод. Великият мъдрец Майтрея каза: Скъпи Видура, Друга Махараджа усмири своя гняв и спря да убива якшите. Когато Кувера, преподобният господар на съкровищницата, чу тази вест, той сам се яви пред Друга. Възхваляван от якшите, кинарите и чанарите, Кувера заговори на Друга Махараджа, който бе застанал пред него с молитвено допрени длани.
Text 2. Dhanara uvacha bhobo kshatriya dayada paritushto smitenaga yatvam pitamahe dashad vairam dushjayajam atyajaha. The master of the treasury, Kuvera, said, "O sinless son of a kshatriya, I'm very glad to know that under the instruction of your grandfather you have given up your enmity. Although it is very difficult to avoid, I am very pleased with you."
Кувера, пазителят на съкровищниците, каза: О, безгрешни сили на кшатрия, с радост научих, че ти си се слушал в наставленията на своя дядо и си постигнал желанието си и си потиснал желанието си за отмъщение. Въпреки, че това не е лесно, много съм доволен от тебе.
Text 3. Nabhavan avadit yakshan yaksha bhartaram tava kalaeva hi bhutanam prabhur apyaya bhavayoho. Actually, you have not killed the yakshas, nor have they killed your brother, for the ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the eternal time feature of the Supreme Lord.
Текст 3. Всъщност, не ти уби якшите, както и не те са истинските убийци на брати. Истинската причина за всяко сътворение и унищожение е Върховният Бог в аспекта си на вечното време.
Purport. When the master of the treasury addressed him as sinless, Dhruva Maharaj, considering himself responsible for killing so many yakshas, might have thought himself otherwise.
После, когато пазителят на съкровищниците нарекал Друга Махараджа безгрешен, Друга вероятно се почувствал виновен за убийството на толкова много якши и започнал да изпитва огризения на съвестта.
Kuvera, however, assured him that factually he had not killed any of the yakshas, therefore he was not at all sinful.
Кувера обаче го успокоил, че не е извършил никакъв грех, защото не е истински убиец на якшите.
He did his duty as a king, as it is ordered by the laws of nature.
Друга просто изпълнявал царския си дълг, наложено от законите на природата.
Kuvera said, nor should you think that your brother was killed by the yakshas.
Не мисли също така, че якшите са виновни за убийството на брата, каза Кувера.
He died or was killed in due course of time by the laws of nature.
Неговата смърт бе неизбежна, защото бе отредена от законите на природата.
Eternal time, one of the features of the Lord, is ultimately responsible for annihilation and generation. You are not responsible for such actions.
Вечното време, което е един от аспектите на върховния Бог, е истинската причина за всяко унищожение и сътворение. Ти не носиш отговорност за действието.
Now, considering the previous chapter, we might become very confused.
И ако се съобразим с това, което беше казано в предишната глава, може умовете ни малко да се обърнат.
Because our way of thinking is either this way or that way. It cannot be both ways.
Защото нашия начин на мислене или е така, или по другия начин. Няма как и двете неща да се гледат.
No? Is he responsible or is he not responsible? What is the case?
Кое е по-точно? Отговорен ли е той или не е отговорен?
If he is not responsible as it is expressed here, then why would Swayambhuva Manu go and advise him?
Ако той не беше отговорен за тези действия, тогава защо Свайамбхува Ману трябваше да ходи и да му дава толкова много съвети?
In the previous chapter, text 7, he says, my dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are actually not offenders.
И, да, в предишната глава, в 7 стих, Свайамбхува Ману му казва: скъпи сине, моля те спри. Не е хубаво да изпадаш в ярост и без нужда, необузданият гняв води направо към ада. Като убиваш якши, които не са виновни за нищо, ти прекрачваш границата на правилата.
My dear son, the killing of the sinless yakshas which you have undertaken is not at all approved by authorities, and it does not befit your family, which is supposed to know the laws of religion and irreligion.
Скъпи сини, изтреблението на невинни якши, започнато от тебе, е забранено от всички ведически авторитети и е напълно недостойно за нашия род, чието потомци добре би трябвало да знаят какво е позволено от принципите на религията и какво им противоречи.
So, is Manu mistaken?
И така, много бъркал ли се?
Because Kuvera now says, actually you have not killed the yakshas, nor have they killed your brother.
Защото Кувера казва, че не е така, че те убия якшите, нито пък, че те убиха твоя брат.
And as an argument he gives, or to justify this statement, that the ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the eternal time feature of the Supreme Lord.
И като довод за това, което той казва, той казва, че Върховният Бог във формата си на вечното време, той е истинската причина за унищожението и сътворението на всичко.
This may remind us actually of Krishna's argument to Arjuna.
И това може да ни напомни на Кришна, който така аргументи
Yes, in the beginning, that's one of the main arguments, that actually you are thinking that you will kill your grandfather and teacher and other relatives, but this is not true. Nahanyate hanyamani sharire. When the body is killed, the living entity, the person, is not really killed.
И аргументът, който Кришна дава на Арджуна, е, че той му казва, ти си мислиш, че ти ще избиеш твоите братя, роднини и така нататък, но всъщност тялото, душата всъщност никога не може да бъде убита.
And at any rate, I'm the time factor and I kill everybody.
И не само това, ами аз съм фактор време и аз също убивам всички.
So even if you would not do this, what I tell you, to fight, there would nobody will go home. They will all be finished.
И дори да не се сражаваш, да не убиеш абсолютно никой от тази битка няма да се върне вкъщи, всички те ще бъдат свършени.
So now we have actually 3 different ways of looking at this.
Сега вече имаме 3 различни начина, по които може да погледнем.
On one hand, Swayambhuva Manu is telling Dhruva Maharaj, what you are doing is not good, you are killing innocent people.
Първият Свайамбхува Ману казва на Dhruva Maharaj, това, което ти правиш, това не е добре, защото избиваш невинните.
Then Kuvera tells him, you have not killed anybody because ultimately it's the eternal time feature of the Lord that kills everybody.
И след това Кувера казва, не е така, че си убил който иде, защото фактора време е този, който убива абсолютно всички.
And the third consideration is Krishna's first lesson in Bhagavad Gita, that although it appears that you are killing somebody, you are not actually killing because the soul is not killed. So now, what is the conclusion? Who is right? What is the right vision? So all 3 are right. And that's not easy for us to accommodate in our mind. And sometimes we may come to wrong understanding even. Like, if we just take this as it is said here, that, well, he uses the word, what is this? It doesn't appear in the Sanskrit, but the idea is that you are sinless because actually you have not killed anybody. So then one may think that, well, then I can do anything, right? I mean, if this is the fact that the ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the time feature of the Lord, if I kill somebody, what's the problem? So in the purport it says that you should not think that your brother was killed by the yakshas, and actually even you did not kill any yaksha either. No? The Kuvera assured him that factually he had not killed any of the yakshas. And therefore he was not sinful. And it's the eternal time feature that is ultimately responsible, therefore you are not responsible for such actions. That's what it says right here.
Това, което се казва тук, е, че понеже истинската причина, крайната причина за сътворението и унищожението, това е вечното време.
So therefore I said, I'm confused, or maybe you are not confused, I am confused. How do we understand such, well, apparently completely contradictory statements?
Как аз съм объркан, може би вие не сте объркани, как можем да ги разберем тези мнения, които външно погледнато изглеждат напълно противоречиви.
And this is not the only place where this kind of situation is presenting itself.
И това не е единственото място, където подобна ситуация се появява.
We can go to Bhagavad Gita, and I'll give you another place where we may become confused. This is 128.
Отиваме в Бхагавад Гита, където също първа глава, 28,
Yes.
друга ситуация.
So there Arjuna, he sees the other party in the battlefield, and he feels that the limbs of his body are quivering and his mouth is drying up, and so he becomes overwhelmed with compassion, and which is stated in 27.
И така, тук Арджуна, когато вижда своите приятели, роднини, да седят пред него, той усеща как крайниците му потръпват и устата му пресъхва.
Then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that as far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, foreseeing their imminent death.
И в пояснението Шрила Прабхупада казва, че самия Арджуна изпитвал, въпреки че изпитвал по-голяма симпатия към неговите войни, той също изпитвал голямо състрадание към войните от противниковата армия, като виждал неизбежната им смърт.
So he was this overwhelmed, a kind devotee like Arjuna.
И той това размекване, което той изпитвал, това е защото той е много мил преоданен. Мил преоданен като Арджуна, той има такива чувства.
It's in the purport here. Although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. It's just above the verse Yasyati. 28.
Yes.
Yes.
Въпреки, че не е споменато, тук не е споменато, човек лесно може да се представи как не само ръцете и краката на Арджуна трепеят и устата му пресъхва, но как и той плаче от състрадание.
Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but due to his soft-heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord.
Всичко това свидетелства не за слабостта му, а за неговата доброта, присъща на чистия преоданен на Бога.
Then in the next verse, when his body is trembling and his bow is slipping from his hand,
И в следващия стих, в цялото му дяло трепери и лъка му се използва от ръцете му.
then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that Arjuna's symptoms in this situation are out of material fear, namely loss of life.
В пояснението му Шрила Прабхупада казва, че тук чувствата, което изпитва,
he says at the end, he was feeling a burning sensation of the skin. All these are due to a material conception of life.
И последното той казва, че той чувствал как сърцето го плати и кожата го изгаря и всичко това се дължи на материалната представа за живота.
And then in the next purport, he says that due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay on the battlefield, and he was forgetting himself on account of this weakness of his mind.
Следващия стих в пояснението, той казва, буквалното безпокойство Арджуна не бил способен да остане до бойното поле и губил контрол над себе си поради слабост на ума.
So now what is what? Is it due to his kindness and such symptoms were not due to weakness but due to his soft-heartedness? That's what it says in 28, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord.
И сега кое? В 28 стих се казва, че това не е заради материална слабост, защото той има това са характеристиките на чистия преобладание на Бога.
But he was forgetting himself on account of this weakness of his mind.
Но след това се казва, че той е забравил себе си и своите задължения заради слабост на ума.
Excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence.
Казва се, че прекаляваната привързаност към материалните неща поставя човек в подобно объркано състояние.
And as we know, then Krishna will actually say that later on, criticizing Arjuna, right in the beginning of the second chapter.
В началото на втора глава той ще критикува Арджуна.
He will ask him, how have these impurities come upon you?
Той му казва, как е възможно това замърсяване да се появи в теб?
Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise.
И изостави тази слабост в сърцето и се изправи.
So now, I'm more confused.
Сега още повече се обърни даже.
How to understand apparently contradictory statements.
Как да разберем тези така външно погледнати противоречиви твърдения?
So, well, we have to reconcile them. Otherwise, we really have a big problem. Because we then one must be right and one must be wrong.
Трябва да разберем кое е правилното, кое е грешното. Иначе как можем да преценим? Едното би трябвало да е правилно, другото би трябвало да е грешно.
So, my opinion
Така моето мнение
that let's first start with our problem. As I said, our problem is we think that things must be one way or the other way, but they cannot be both ways.
основният ни проблем е, че ние си мислим, че нещата се правят или по един начин, или по другия, но не приемаме, че могат да бъдат верни и по двата начина.
What do you see? How do you see which side is front, which side is top? Aha.
Коя страна според вас е отгоре, а коя е отпред?
So how do you see it? What the dark one, how is it for you?
Как е за вас по-тъмната част?
Has to be more far away versus more back.
Той каза, че...
So what is top?
Добре, кажете тогава, кое е за вас отгоре? Кое е отгоре?
You can show, I could show, is this the top or is that top?
Това ли
Oh,
или това?
how do they go?
Как отиват? Кое е отгоре, кое е надолу?
There may be, I mean, I see it in one way. I see them coming like this. This is the right side, this is the top side, this is the front. That's what I see. Yes?
Това е моят начин, как ги виждам аз нещата.
Yeah.
Това би трябвало да е отгоре, това отдясно.
Yes, you see that as I see it? Or no? You see it in a different way?
Can't be here.
Eh?
Depends.
Well, that's exactly, it depends. But you can see it, no? This is the right side, this is the top, this is the front. Is that clear? Yes? You
Yes.
can see?
Yes.
And then you can see it in a different way? What's the different way? It's not easy. You have to really change your vision to see now that this is actually the left side.
Yes.
And when it's the left side, then this is the top.
This is
And this is what, let's see.
this the.
But you can see it in a different way.
Yes, I see now.
Now you see.
Yes.
And you can see it again the other way. But you cannot simultaneously see both.
Yes.
You see that? Do you see how we become bewildered?
Виждате ли как се объркахме?
It's strange, huh? You wonder how is this? It's the same thing. It's just, I mean, this is actually a beach, huh? It's an artist who did this on the sand. Now, the same pattern you can see in Villa Vrindavan on the floor, the marble floor. It's exactly the same.
Това са артисти, които са го направили това на пясъка, а в мраморния пот в Вила Вриндаван е направено подобно.
With different colored marbles, looks practically almost identical. I mean, it's marble, so it looks much more beautiful in one sense.
С мраморни плочи от различни цветове.
Do they see it? They don't see it. Huh? You have to. Huh? No, I'm saying that it's on the. They can see that. So the point is that even something simply material, some material object, practically speaking, can have simultaneously two different ways of looking at it, and it's not one is better than the other, or one is real and the other is unreal.
И основният момент е, че дори нещо материално може да има различни аспекти и не е така, че единия е по-реален от другия.
So this is actually a very practical presentation of Beda Abeda. It's simultaneously this way and that way, one and different at the same time, and we think it's not possible. Yes, it is possible.
И това е много практичен пример за чинки Беда Абеда. Едновременно еднакви и различни.
So Arjuna, he's an eternal associate of Krishna.
И така Арджуна е вечен съпътник на Кришна.
And actually Prabhupada mentions here that Arjuna is put into this situation by Krishna's will. So one can look at his reaction to the situation as, yes, as Prabhupada did, he is very kind, he is compassionate, and therefore he feels, I don't want to fight and kill all these people. And then one can look at it from a different point of view, that if you look at from the absolute platform, then, like here they said, you're not killing anybody actually, because first of all, you're not the body, and ultimately it's the Lord who is causing everything. There's two arguments for this, that you are not responsible. So, but Manu, he saw it in a different way. And actually Kuvera, because it was Kuvera, like Manu said at the end of the chapter, that you should immediately pacify Kuvera because you have been very disrespectful by killing the yakshas who are part of his entourage. They belong to Kuvera's family.
И в предишната глава, своя Друва Ману каза на Друва, трябва по някакъв начин да умилостивиш Кувера, защото си избил част от него, от неговото семейство.
And in that purport 33, Prabhupada says that somehow or other the mind of Kuvera had been agitated by Dhruva's activities, and Dhruva Maharaj was advised to pacify him.
И в предишната глава, в текст 33, Шрила Прабхупада казва, че ума на Кувера бил обезпокоен и че Друва трябва да направи нещо, за да го успокои.
Yes, that comes from the verse. In the verse it says that by this action you have agitated the mind of Lord Shiva's brother Kuvera, who is the treasurer of the demigods, by killing all these yakshas.
Там се казва, че с действията си ти оскърбяваш брата на Бог Шива, Кувера.
And now Kuvera comes and tells him, actually, you have not killed anybody. So how then was he agitated? Why was he agitated? If he was agitated.
Пък сега идва пък самия Кувера и му казва, не, ако той е бил изобщо по някакъв начин притеснен, защо отива и му казва, ти всъщност не си убил абсолютно никой.
So therefore, one has to be very careful when reading these things that we don't come to wrong conclusions.
И затова човек трябва да е много внимателен, докато чете тези неща, да не стигне до погрешно заключение.
We cannot just take now this and forget about the previous chapter and think that, well, actually, yes, he didn't do anything wrong. He's not responsible for such actions.
И ние не трябва да вземаме твърдението от днеска и да си казваме, ами това, което четахме в предишните глави, това не е правилно. Той изобщо не носи никаква отговорност за избиването на ящите.
So, we should feel that whatever we do, we are responsible for every single action we perform.
Това, което ние трябва да чувстваме, е, че се чувстваме отговорни за всяко едно действие, което ние извършваме.
One cannot justify any sinful activity by saying, well, everything is, the ultimate cause is the eternal time feature of the Lord, so what can I do?
Човек не може да си отпусти различните греховни дейности, които е извършил, просто като каже, ами, какво да направим? Все пак всичко е в ръцете на върховното време.
Like, you kill somebody and then you say, well, he died or was killed in due course of time by the laws of nature. That's what Prabhupada says here in the purport, which he says Kuvera basically was telling Dhruva. You shouldn't think that your brother was killed. He died was due course of time by the laws of nature, so they are not at fault. So then any criminal is not at fault because just the person he killed was killed in time by the laws of nature. That's all.
И човек не трябва да си мисли, така че убие някой и си каже, какво направя, защото това беше поради върховната причина на върховния и на вечното време. И това нито един престъпник не трябва да се чувства виновен, защото това е време.
So that might even be true, that if somebody gets killed, it's not by accident or just by, by chance. This is what people think. Everything you are unlucky. He's lucky and you just had bad luck. And to how they say, to be at the wrong time at the wrong place.
И може да има някаква доза истина, когато стане някакъв нещастен случай и човек загине и има лош късмет и това, което ти казвате, той е бил на погрешното място в погрешното време.
Or sometimes it happens, a very practical example, in an airplane accident, all the people die, and one person who was supposed to be on that flight, for some reason, just before boarding the flight, there was a phone call or something happened, so he didn't get on the flight. Or maybe even the taxi was late, and he missed the flight.
И понякога имаме такива случаи за самолет, който катастрофира и всички хора в самолета умират. И имало обаче човек, който точно да се качва в самолета, обаче някой се обажда и той се върнал или закъснял трусител и заради трусител той се стръгвал с самолета.
He may even become angry at the taxi driver. Why did you go so slow? Now I missed my flight. Now I have to get another one and I have to wait, and it's just a big problem.
И той в самото начало си доста страшно много на таксиметровия шофьор. Казал, как може да закъснеш толкова много? Сега аз трябва да си купувам нов билет и да чакам толкова време и толкова много проблеми.
So, and then he has to wait in the airport, and maybe the accident happens by takeoff, which sometimes happens, and then he learns that just this flight now just had an accident and everybody died. Then he goes to the taxi driver and embraces him and says, I thank you so much for being slow because you saved my life.
И тръгва самолета и катастрофира и всички измират, те още чакат другия самолет и първо, който прави, отива пред таксиметровия шофьор, прегръща го и му казва: толкова много ти благодаря, че кажеш толкова бавно, защото благодарение на това ти не спаси живота.
Yes, so the eternal time factor, it's true. For some reason he was not destined to get on that flight, and others they did.
И фактора време е проработил тогава среди определени обстоятелства, той не е успял да стигне на време, самолетът е тръгнал без него и той остава жив, но другите не.
So, and if one investigates the cause of the accident, then it turns out that both pilots were drunk and they just didn't do their job properly, and therefore the plane went down. So, well, but they're not responsible because according to the time feature, the law of nature, they became drunk. No, they are responsible.
Някой друг път може да каже, примерно, друга ситуация, и двамата пилоти на самолета са напили и заради това самолета е катастрофирал. Някой може да каже, да, но все пак те не са виновни, защото такъв е фактора на вечното време, защо е време да си умрат хората и затова пилотите не са виновни. Не, те са виновни.
So this is, if you think, you can think of many examples how one may feel that, what can I do? It's beyond my... If something is really beyond your control, you tried everything to avoid, then one can say, yes, what can I do? You're not responsible. But if it was in your power to avoid it and something happens because you have negligence, then don't use this argument as it is given here in these verses.
И има определени ситуации и когато ти си взел всички мерки и си избегнал, за да избегнеш това, което се е случило, тогава добре. Но ако не си взел мерки и се е случило нещо лошо, тогава не дей да използваш това като аргумент, че аз нямам вина.
Like somebody could say, well, I'm just going to drive now on this fast road and I'll just close my eyes. And if Krishna wants, then I will survive, and if he doesn't want, then I'll have an accident. What can I do? right?
Може да тръгне по главния път наблизо магистралата и да си затвори очите и да каже, да кара силно и да каже, ами ако Кришна реши, всичко ще е добре, ако не, ще има инцидент.
And because the demigods are controlling every movement of my body, that I closed my eyes, it's not my fault. Some demigod made me close my eyes.
И защото има различни полубогове, които отговарят за движението на различни части от тялото ми и затова аз, това, че съм си затворил очите, това е под контрола на полуба.
So that's not the right philosophy.
Това не е правилната философия.
We, to a certain extent, we have a power of taking decisions and acting in one way or the other. We're not just some puppet.
До определена степен ние имаме някаква свобода да изберем да действаме по един начин или по друг. Не е така, че сме просто някакви кукли.
And in one sense, yes, in Bhagavad Gita, we'll find this idea that Arjuna is supposed to become the instrument, right?
Обаче имаме и в Бхагавад Гита, където се препоръчва на Арджуна просто да стане инструмент.
But he has to decide whether he wants to become or not to become the instrument.
Но той е този, който трябва да реши дали да стане инструмент или не.
So Krishna will explain, but at the end he will say, now I've told you everything, now what you're going to do?
И в края на Бхагавад Гита Кришна му казва, аз ти обясних всичко, сега какво е това, което ти ще избереш да направиш.
So this responsibility we have to act in one way or the other way, like Dhruva did. So yes, one is responsible. And simultaneously not responsible.
И човек има свободата да избере и той носи отговорност за това дали действа по един начин или по друг. И едновременно с това не е отговорен също.
All right, so interesting subject, simultaneously this way or that way, and both are true.
Интересни теми, едновременно по един начин и по другия, и двете са истини.
You can also, one may say, different levels of reality.
Може да го кажем по друг начин, също това са различни нива на реалност.
Like the Pandit is supposed to see all the living entities with an equal vision, right?
Както един пандит, от него се очаква да вижда всички живи същества по един и същ начин.
Or Krishna says that I am impartial, I'm not partial to anyone.
И също Кришна казва, не е така, че предпочитам някого.
Because, all the living Sarvayoni Shukaunteya, all the living entities, doesn't matter, even if it's a worm, they're all coming from me. So I see them all equally.
Защото всички живи същества идват от мен, дори и червите.
But then he says that, but those who are my devotees, I have a special consideration.
След това, което казва е, тези обаче, които са мои преодарени, аз се отнасям към тях по-специално.
So although the sage or the Pandit may see all the living entities on the same level, but the treatment will be different according to what kind of body they have.
И въпреки, че пандита вижда всички живи същества по еднакъв начин, начинът по който той се отнася към всички е по-различен.
He will not embrace a tiger.
Той няма да се върне тигър.
Just happened, I think, the other day. Somebody actually paid for being very close to some of these, not a tiger, but a leopard or something, just to have a close encounter. And nowadays people are like, they have these crazy ideas. So they let him get close to that animal and of course attacked, and he became not killed but badly injured.
разбира се, бил атакуван и не бил убит, но бил много тежко ранен.
Or this famous duo, Siegfried and Roy, two Germans actually, who in Las Vegas had this show with the white tiger.
И имало двама много известни германци, Зитванг и...
One of them died lately, but anyway.
Те имали шоу, много известно с бял тайгър.
Yeah, that white tiger, special, really white, not just some sprays, but he actually was white.
Истински бял, а не такъв буйдисен тигър.
Well, that's quite some time ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, but it was a big show in Las Vegas every night. They were on stage with the tiger, and one of them, he put his head into the open mouth of the tiger, and then, took it out again, and everybody was like, wow, and paid a lot of money. They became very rich and famous.
И преди 20-30 години много известни били. Това, което правили, имали голямо шоу, с което правили много пари, отваряли устата на тигъра, един си слагал вътре главата. И изкарвали и всички ръкопляскали и те били направили много пари.
I'm not sure, but I doubt that he did this because he had read Bhagavad-gita and he was told the sage has equal vision and sees all the living entities on the same level. He doesn't make any difference. So why not, my dear tiger, I love you so much. Kiss the tiger.
Съмнявам се, че някой от тях е чел Бхагавад-гита и си е казал да гледаме всички живи същества по един и същ начин и скъпи мои тигре, ела тук да силуваме.
So this is not the right, you don't see that there's no difference, so I can treat the tiger as I treat a human being.
И това не е правилно. Човек да си казва, няма никаква разлика, така че с тигра и с човешките същества ще отнасям по един и същ начин.
Because for many, many years this was a big show and fantastic. Until one night the tiger closed his mouth with the head inside. He was trained not to do that. But he's an animal, so, for whatever reason, maybe the time factor, he's not responsible, of course. This happened. Definitely, it was the time factor. No other cause. So then the guy was not killed, but very badly injured and was paralyzed, and he ended up in the wheelchair. So no more show. So there are different levels of vision, and you cannot just mix them up. But they're simultaneously true. Not as one is true and the other is wrong. So Arjuna can be compassionate and weak of heart at the same time. I mean, depends how you look at it. Or Dhruva can be responsible for killing and not responsible because it's the time factor. Depends how you look at it. But for us and our own dealings, there's only one way to look at it. I'm responsible for what I do. Don't tell, well, the Lord made me do this or that nonsense. What can I do? No, that's just Maya. doubts? Okay.
I don't have a doubt, a question. Regarding this topic, killing animals or human beings very, very sinful, especially human being. But in case that some ferocious animals are attacking you and your life is in danger, or some human being is attacking you and
Yes.
your life is really in danger, should you respond and kill them? And, do you have a right to do this?
Yes, you
Kill
do.
them,
So yeah, this
protect yourself.
of course. If there's an attack, actually that's right here in Bhagavad Gita in the beginning also, where Prabhupada tells us that there are 7 attackers which you have a right to kill if they attack. Burning the house down, kidnapping your wife, attacking with a deadly weapon, like that. So this is, even in common law, self-defense is not a crime. You don't become sinful by defending yourself according to the necessity.
И така въпросът е да се убие животно или човешко същество много грешно, но ако човек бъде нападнат, има ли право той да убие? Махарадж каза, че в началото на Бхагавад Гита се описват различни видове агресори. Ако някой нападне с оръжие, или тези, които са похитителите на жени и други има също, те са, човек има правото да ги убие.
So, defense, normally, that's also mundane law, your defense has to be according to the level of attack. Huh?
Също и светския закон и по същия начин може да се защитиш в зависимост от степента, в която си нападнат.
Which is mundane law and it's not perfect, of course, but that's their consideration. If somebody just attacks you with their fists, you cannot shoot them. Then you become a criminal.
Както примерно, това е въпрос на логика, ако някой тръгне с юмруци да се напада, нямаш право да го гръмнеш, защото това ще се води престъпление.
But that's very relative. It's you're a small skinny guy and this giant, bodybuilding champion comes onto you and he will just, when he beats you, you will die, and you have a gun, you may have to shoot him because you can't really fight on the same level. So that, these are all considerations, but generally the idea is that you can defend yourself. Then there's no sin. Animal or man, whatever it may be.
Разбира се, това е относително тези светски закони, те не са много точни, защото да кажем, че ти си малко такова слабитко момченце и дойде някакъв огромен великан. Той се налага и ти ще умреш и вадиш тогава пистолета и го гръмваш. Обаче може това да се чита да не е правилно според закона.
Of course, and maybe an option is just to run away if you can. Maybe the best. But if it's not possible, then that's law of nature also. Defense is no problem.
И може би най-добрият вариант, ако успееш да избягаш. Това е най-добрият. Но ако не можеш, самозащитата също имаш право.
Okay, so anything else? We can stop. Yes. Srila Prabhupada. Oh. No, okay. Just be quick.
I remember in one lecture, you mentioned that because many contradictions, even among devotees, and for this reason we have acharya, we have guru, and
Yes.
devotees.
Yes.
This is
But as I pointed out, you may even find apparently contradictions when, like Prabhupada says this in one purport, in the next purport he says something which appears to be completely different. So one has to reconcile by taking into account also maybe other sections or in general the philosophy. So we, as I pointed out with this picture, it's possible to see the same reality from different angles, and it's not that one is correct and the other is incorrect. They can both be correct at the same time. So we have to find some, if there's a contradiction, we think there's a contradiction, it's generally to lack of right vision. Okay. The Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srimad Gauravani ki